in my opinion. What was I missing? What did I not see? What was wrong with me? Hi friends, welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be talking about all of the books that I read in May. I'm going to be giving a few of my own opinions if I recommend them to you, and I will also give you my star ratings for each book. Before we get into this video, if you have not, please give it a like and subscribe down below, that way you don't miss any more of my videos. And let's start with the first book, and then I will start with the first one that I finished in May all the way until the last one that I finished in May. I'll give you a little small synopsis, that way you know what you're getting into, and then we'll get into my thoughts. So let's start with the first book. The first book that I finished in May was The X-Vows by Jessica Joyce. This was my first Jessica Joyce book, and I actually heard really good reviews from Sarah, so I went ahead and picked up this book. I felt like it would be perfect for summer, and it was. This is a second chance romance. It is about 5 years from when they first were in a relationship, and the backdrop is like a wedding scene. So it's really exciting. Both of their best friend is getting married, so they have to go to the wedding, and everything just keeps going wrong. So they're the ones that need to come together to fix it. And with that comes the growth and finding each other again. It's so cute and wholesome, and it really shows that nothing has to be perfect, and having a little mess is actually a little better. And you get Eli's anxiety and his stress, but you also get Georgia's having to be perfect all the time or pleasing people. So the characters feel very real, and you're able to relate to them in a different way. There was actually a review that someone put in Goodreads about this book, and I just have to tell you guys. So Hannah was the person that wrote it, and it says, he's the type of guy who would build you a bookshelf in the morning and then break a table eating you for dinner. A little TMI, but honestly, Eli gives that personality. This book I ended up rating 4.5 stars. It's really, really good. It just didn't blow me away the way I thought it would, and that's okay. So 4.5 stars to The X-Vows, and if you're looking for a fun, quick romance fun read, this is one that I would recommend for you. Then we did a complete 180, and I read my first historical fiction book, and that was The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. I felt like it has been years since I read this book, and it hasn't. This book, wow, just wow. I did not think I was gonna like it as much as I did, and I had seen so many high rated reviews on this book that's kind of what pushed me to read it. And I do love history like this. I love learning about it, even though it's sad. It takes place in World War II, so it's about the Nazis, Germany, France, and I do love learning about that, but I didn't know how it would portray through a book to me. I didn't know if it was going to be boring. Something about it, I could not put this book down. I wanted to read and read and read, and I did not want to put it down. And towards the end of it, I was actually sad that it was coming to an end, because I loved the visualization of things that were going on around them. Again, it was sad, but it made me feel, which is what I wanted. And I cried so much at the end of this book. It was heartbreaking, but in the best way I could possibly say. And it just opens your eyes to things that, sure, you've heard things, but seeing it play in your head the way this book did is a completely different topic. So this book I ended up rating 5 stars. I am someone who everyone else's opinions do affect mine, and I've been really trying not to look at reviews before I rate it myself, because then I get in my head about, oh, maybe it was like a 4.5 or a 4. It wasn't a 5. No, this was a 5 stars, and I stay by that. I am so glad this was my first historical fiction book and my first Kristen Hanna book, because I will be picking up more books from her, and I feel like I'm more open to trying other historical fiction books. So 5 stars. If you want something that's going to make you feel every emotion and paint pictures in your head, this is a book that I would highly, highly tell you to pick up. I know it's big, but trust me, it does not feel that long, in my opinion. Now, I do want to preface that a lot of these books are in videos throughout the last few weeks that I've posted. So if you truly want more in-depth and kind of in the moment feelings on these books, I will try to link them throughout the video. That way, if you're interested, or you can just go to my page and see which one kind of catches your eye. But the reason I say that is because now we're getting into some young adult, and I read this book and a few other books for a specific video. So that video might give you a little bit more of an idea of why I picked these up and why I went into this kind of direction, even though it's becoming summer. So The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. Surprise, I never read these books. I also never read The Inheritance Games. I have both of them, and I just never picked them up. They caught my eye, and then once they were on my TBR cart, they went out of my head. I would see them, but it didn't make me want to pick them up, and I think a part of that is because it's young adult. So The Naturals, tell me, why did I not read this book? I keep saying that, but truthfully, what was I missing? What did I not see? What was wrong with me? This book I rated 4 stars. Honestly, it's leaning more towards like 4.5 because I loved it that much. The romance was not very strong in this book. Like I said, it's a YA, and it definitely focused more on like the mystery, because there's these young kids and they're recruited by the FBI to help solve cold case murders. So if that does not tell you to read this book, I don't know what does. I found it so fascinating. Everyone's unique abilities to tell if someone's lying, put codes together, or read someone's body language. I could not put the book down. It was such a fast-paced and bingeable read that it was so good. I actually almost bought the second book before I even finished this one. So it's definitely a series that I'm going to continue, and I'm so excited to see how it goes, because this one ended on such a cliffhanger, and there was such a big plot twist that I had ideas, okay? I did. I had ideas of like, well, I think this is what's going to happen. I think this is what's going to happen. Nope, I did not guess it. And when I tell you my jaw dropped, it dropped. So The Naturals, it's so good, and like I said, it's not heavy on the romance. That is not the main point of this book. You get a lot of character involvement, and are there some aspects of each character that I'm like, oh, I don't know how I feel about that? Absolutely. Cassie is our main character, and I thought she was really cool. Now, it's not like I felt extremely connected to her, but I did enjoy reading her point of view on everything. And once they started getting into the murders and solving them, I was right there with them. I was like, let me step in and let me help you solve these murders, okay? So highly recommend this book. If you want a YA, this is a good one. It's definitely one that I was a little intimidated going into because I really did want to enjoy it, but I have not read YA in so long. It did not disappoint, not at all. Now, I was reading this book along with that one, so it's gonna seem a little weird, but the next book that I finished was The Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins. And I don't rate nonfiction books just because, how do I rate it? I feel like it's based on someone's personal experiences and kind of the information that they're giving you to take. So I can't really rate it. Now, would I recommend it? Yes. I felt like it was repetitive in some ways, but it's also like life lessons. It's giving you advice on how to help your relationship with yourself, but also with others, to flourish and to develop and to grow. And I did like that. There were definitely quotes in here that I could 100% relate to in every way. And there were other parts that I couldn't connect to because I wasn't there in my life yet. So I was like ready to just move on. So in that way, it is repetitive. You are getting a lot of the same information. It's just broken down into different sections of your life, with yourself, with your relationship with people, with your relationship with your significant other, with work. So it's a good book. I recommend it. I could not find the Spotify audiobook. I don't know. I just didn't want to choose the wrong one. So I didn't even bother with it, but I have heard the audiobook is a little bit easier to pick up and to listen to rather than sitting down and reading this nonfiction book. I didn't mind it though. Red Queen by Victoria Avantgarde, another book that I read for a video, and this is a YA dystopian fantasy novel. It was fine. I rated it 3 stars. It didn't blow me away. It's definitely an old book. It was published in 2015, so about 10 years ago, and I think that it really showed that it's not a book that's really talked about right now, and there are 4 other books after it. Now, the story itself was good. It definitely took me a while to get into. I don't know if that was the character aspect or the world just didn't feel very developed, and it was kind of hard to understand at some points in the book. I was getting a little confused, and romance is not a big aspect in this book, but yet it is talked about or shown throughout it, and that was one thing that was confusing for me. And I don't know if that's because of the plot twist at the end. That was kind of the purpose for the confusion, but it did leave on a cliffhanger to the point where if I had the option to pick up the next book, maybe I would pick it up, but it's definitely not one that's high on my radar or on my priorities. It's okay. And if you want a dystopian YA or a fantasy YA that gives you those nostalgic feelings, this is one that you could go for. And it's not like a waste of my time. It's just there were other books that I enjoyed way more this month. And yeah, let me know your feelings on this book specifically, because it's hard for me when I'm reading such an old book, because it really truthfully, like, I'm trying to think of myself now reading it, and I do think I would have loved this back then, but I don't know why exactly I'm not loving it right now. I think it's just not for me in my current time in my life. But it wasn't bad by any means. 3 stars. We have 2 more books to talk about. Book Lovers by Emily Henry is the next one. I don't know why it took me so long to read this book, and this, in the best way possible, is like a enemies to lovers trope. Now, obviously, it's not an fantasy enemies to lovers. It's not that, but they're both in the writing industry, the publishing industry, and they're kind of going against each other. They're rivals, and you get a deep and meaningful connection. You're learning about Charlie Lastra's past, and you're also getting Nora's past. But it's not even just their relationship and the romance that you're getting. You're also getting the sibling romance between Nora and her sister, which I absolutely adored. I felt like it was so wholesome and relatable, and it was just amazing. I do think that Nora and Charlie are probably one of the best character duos that Emily Henry has written. This book wasn't my top Emily Henry book, but don't get me wrong, it's definitely very, very much up there. I think that I read this in a point that I was kind of not slumping, but it was a little hard for me to get into or stay into. So I would pick it up and then I'd put it down for a while and then I'd pick it up. So I do think that affected my score a little bit, but it had nothing to do with the book. I highly recommend this book, and if you've kept putting it off, pick it up because you won't regret it, especially if you love reading books. That's why it's called Book Lovers. perfect title for this book, and there were so many story references. She would come up with situations that happen in romance novels, and I would just like smile and giggle, and I annotated, dog-eared, underlined, everything like that in this book because there were certain lines. I mean, Emily Henry's writing, come on, it's stunning, and I was able to find some really beautiful quotes that I loved. So read this book if you haven't, and it was great. I rated this 4.5 stars, not a 5. It's not the best one, but I can't rate it a 4 for the reason being there's other books that are a 4 that just don't meet this standard. I did really enjoy it, and it might just have to be a book I have to sit with for a little bit, and maybe I'll come back and I'll change that score, whether it's dropping it down or bringing it up. We'll just see. Now, the last book that I finished in May was Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. First Carly Fortune book. This book was more popular back in the day. I don't know when. Let me see when it was published. 2022-ish. So I heard when it was talked about, but I just never picked it up, and I really wanted to read her new book that just came out, but I realized that this is kind of the first book in that series. You don't have to read them like that, but I wanted to, just so I could get the background and the history going into the next book. So this takes place over 6 summers at a lake, and it was a perfect read for summer spring. Absolutely perfect read. Now, it ended up being about a 4-star for me. I loved where this story took place. It was very beautiful, and it put me right into that summer cottage feeling. However, there were a few things that I didn't love, such as our main character. Her name's Persephone. She was a little whiny, and she would complain a little bit, which I didn't love. And then towards the end of the story, I did not like how her storyline went. I think it really ruined the romance aspect for me, and not to say that it was a bad book. I still rated it 4 stars, but I think it would have been higher if it would have ended a little differently. Now, Sam, our male main character, he is so sweet and so genuine, and you got that from the second you met him. And he wanted to be a cardiologist, so there were a lot of medical kind of similarities that I could relate to that I really enjoyed in this book. And if you want a short, cute summer read, pick up this one. Her new book I'll talk about, but I actually didn't finish it this month, so I can't talk about it in this video. Stay tuned for my thoughts. But Every Summer After was the last book that I finished in May, and I would say it was a good end to the month. These were all of the books that I read this month, and honestly, I felt like they were a very good mix. There's been not too many months that I really stretch and get a lot of different genres, and this month definitely did that for me. And with that being said, there were a lot of books that I loved, and I'm so glad I got off of my TBR cart. If you have any more recommendations just based on these that I read, let me know, because I would love to read them and pick them up. If you have any thoughts of your own, whether you loved one of these books or did not love one of these books, tell me down below and I will answer your comment. With that being said, thank you guys so much for sticking to the end and watching this video, and I hope to see you in my next one. Bye.